And this weekend, President Obama made it absolutely clear that he sides with Israel in this dispute with Hamas.
There's no country on earth that would tolerate missiles raining down on its citizens from outside its borders. So we are fully supportive of Israel's right to defend itself from missiles landing on people's homes and workplaces and potentially killing civilians.
Longtime Middle East diplomat Dennis Ross joins me now, just back from Israel last night. Dennis, first of all, Ban Ki-moon, the UN Secretary General, now is planning, according to the UN, to meet with Netanyahu in Israel after he meets in Cairo with Morsi, with President Morsi, and also with Abbas in the West Bank. But up until this point, the UN has really not been a player here, and whether they can be now. What is your understanding of the terms of engagement in the efforts to reach a ceasefire?
Well, I think the reports you heard are probably pretty close to accurate. The fact is, from an Israeli standpoint, they don't want an outcome that produces a ceasefire and then 2 weeks from now this starts all over again. And when they mobilize this many troops, it's not so easy to keep them mobilized for a long period of time. So the notion that somehow this is just posturing on their part, it should be taken as something far more serious than just only posturing. Hamas, for its part, no doubt, wants to be in a position where the passages get opened and basically Palestinians are free to travel and so forth. Now, that also has an Egyptian dimension, because the fact of the matter is the Egyptians, even under the new Egyptian government, have not created a free trade area, a free area for movement and so forth. So Egypt has an interest in trying to move things along. No doubt they're adopting, I think they're going to support the Hamas position at one level. But I think the fact is the Israelis want a certainty that, if this ceasefire is going to take place, what is the guarantee that this is not something that's going to break down after a couple of weeks?
Now, one of the things that Michael Oren, the Israeli ambassador, told us last Thursday on this program is we want to get to those stockpiles of rockets. How realistic is that when first of all, there are higher grade, longer range rockets being smuggled in the last couple of years? You now don't have an Egyptian partner like Mubarak, who is going to try to shut down those tunnels. So Israel has some real concerns, and Hamas has access to much better weaponry.
It does, and that also gets back to part of the purpose of what the Israelis are doing. The Israelis are going after targets that are designed to destroy this capability that Hamas has. So when you talk about collateral damage, it's because a lot of the rockets are put in highly populated areas, point one.
This is one of the most dense populated areas in the world.
Absolutely.
This square mile of Gaza.
When one talks about collateral damage on the other side, the fact is Hamas is shooting rockets at civilian areas. Their targets are civilians. It's not collateral damage. Their targets are that. So there's an asymmetry built in. Now, the Israelis would like to have an outcome here where you can't have whatever they destroy, they can't then suddenly be allowed to rebuild. Mubarak, by the way, did very little to shut down the movement of arms into Gaza. They allowed these smuggling tunnels to exist.
Interesting.
They represent a threat to the Egyptian government even today, because the fact is, what's happened in the Sinai is you have a lot of jihadi forces there now who end up focusing not only on the Israelis but also Egypt. So President Morsi has an interest himself in doing something much more dramatic than has been the case before.
Now, what is your bottom line? You've just come back from Israel. You've spoken to everyone there. Do you think there will be a ground invasion?
I think that the last thing the Israelis would like to do is have to go in on the ground. They know that this is a very expensive proposition. But they're not going to allow a situation where you go through this problem and then you have to repeat it after a couple of weeks.
And what do you say to those who suggest that this is just Netanyahu trying to improve his chances for election?
Yeah, I don't.
He was guaranteed election in any case, was he not?
I don't buy it. Exactly. Look,
it's not politically timed.
It is not politically timed. What happened, I'll tell you, in the last couple of weeks is that Hamas was doing less and less to stop jihadi forces in Gaza from firing rockets into Israel, number one. Number two, they began to assume responsibility for some of these attacks. Three, in the last 2 weeks, they began to attack Israeli forces patrolling the border. It was as if what Hamas was trying to do was to create a new normal, where because Israel was facing an election and was preoccupied with that, preoccupied with Iran, they really wouldn't want to escalate. And because they had a Muslim Brotherhood-dominated government, they thought, well, the Egyptians will be on our side. So they thought they could create a new normal, and the Israelis basically said, if you think you can create a new normal where we're going to have 1 million of our people subjected to going into their home, or going into shelters all the time, think again.
And we just have a couple of seconds left, but Morsi, the new unknown, that what has changed all of this is the Arab Spring, quote-unquote,
right.
spring, and the fact that you've got a Muslim Brotherhood leader in Egypt who's been pressured over and over again by President Obama, if you want your money, is the
That's
subtext.
Right.
If you want your economy to revive and survive, you had better put pressure on Hamas. Is he?
I believe actually he is. I think you have public rhetoric that is both responsive to his own emotional interests, but a private reality where they are putting pressure on. Look, they are now the ones who are trying to broker a deal, and they're brokering a deal that they'll be able in the end say, look, Hamas is better off, but it will be a deal also that in the end ensures that Israel isn't going to be subject to this over and over again.
Dennis Ross, thank you so much. Thanks
My
for
pleasure.
being here.